So I'm back with a video, follow-up video, first one in a while. I've done in a while since I've been doing these short form reviews, but had some more stuff to talk about with Mortal Kombat that I couldn't really, didn't really have time to talk about when I had freshly seen it out of the theaters from last week. But it's more so pertaining about the finer details of my feedback of the movie. So I do attest that while you're if you know what you're going into, especially as a fan of Mortal Kombat, if you already have familiarity with everything, you're going to find some enjoyment with the movie. I have to guess that critics who didn't like it were unfamiliar with all the characters and the lore and stuff like that, and didn't get much out of it, especially with the fast-paced storytelling. It didn't really leave enough time for many of the characters outside of like Jade and Kitana and Johnny Cage to really breathe. So it just totally glosses over Sonya, Jax, Raiden, even Scorpion. It's just like pretty much every character kind of glosses over. Just the main focus is really Johnny Cage and Kitana with the Jade and stuff. But that's one of my biggest drawbacks, and I think the movie, or this new series of Mortal Kombat movies, really puts itself at a disadvantage that it had such a rough start with the first movie, committing all sorts of storytelling mistakes. And it's there's only so much it can make up for. I mean, pulling the focus away from Cole Young was definitely, from fan feedback, because I don't think I know of anybody who actually liked that character from the first movie. Kind of feel bad for the actor who played him, because, he's not really a fan favorite. I mean, quite the opposite, actually. And, that's no surprise that he's, spoiler alert, spoiler discussion. It's no surprise that he killed him off halfway through the movie. They set him up with that emotional dialogue, just kind of throw him a bone, I guess. But for the most part, I still find it odd, and I understand that they can't really go back to it, that they still sideline Kung Lao and Liu Kang and stuff. So I feel like there's a concerted effort from the filmmakers and stuff to not retread the same story beats that the original 1995 movie did, because that movie really just kind of nailed it. I mean, I guess the major drawbacks of that are the awful VFX for Reptile in that one, but also just the bloodless violence. Had that movie gone for an R rating and stuff like that, that would have been just a masterpiece of Mortal Kombat. But for the most part, that one just kind of hit all the story beats, and so that one still holds up today. But, this one offers a lot of fan service. Forgive me for my rambling format of this sort of video. But I understand some what's the word I'm looking for? Hesitancy, because of the setup of a sort of a bait and switch. And there are some moments in the movie that does kind of feel like bait and switchy, particularly with the major focus on Kitana, giving her the major heroic character beats and stuff. But it sort of makes sense in the sense that she has a more personal arc to go through, considering that her realm was the one that was taken over by Outworld with Shao Kahn, and her father was the one who was murdered by Shao Kahn, losing that last tournament, and her mother was the one who was twisted and turned into Revenant. Side note, I'm glad they kept with that original story beats for Sindel, even though she was just kind of a very minor character, but it leaned towards the original character background for Sindel rather than the new stuff that the Mortal Kombat 11 really leaned into, which sort of ruins the character, and kind of goes back on her original character origins. So it makes sense that they give her those moments, but it just it handed up a little bit too much for my taste, and I can see why people who are a little bit more critical of those kind of story beats would not like that whatsoever. I understood it, I understood the assignment, I guess. It's interesting what they did bringing back Kano and making him sort of just a fan favorite, the good guy, essentially, because he's always been known to be just a chaotic bad guy, always really selfish and always betraying Earthrealm and stuff. But this one, because he was such, again, because he was such a fan favorite from the first movie, it's no surprise to bring him back, and they don't make him into Revan, and the fact that he does a good guy turn to helping the Earthrealmers out instead of aiding Outworld. Logically, explain it with that funny monologue of the movie, it makes sense, because honestly, I mean, if you're into the spoils of war and just the joy of just, being a rebel and stuff like that, there's a limit to what you can enjoy. And, Outworld does not offer a whole lot in that regard. I mean, so it's kind of, that monologue does kind of explain it pretty good, why he would aid Earthrealm, because it's kind of nice here, Outworld's kind of a shithole, so of course he wouldn't want to, them to win. So that made sense. Interesting how it's leaning into, but it kind of, the whole movie near the end kind of feels a little too Marvel-y, and it leans way too much into the humor, I think. Not that Mortal Kombat was devoid of it or ever took itself seriously, but it kind of teetered farther to one side than I would have preferred, especially with what they did with Baraka. I mean, Baraka, he looked great, that fight was cool, but the Tarkatans, I guess, weren't as monstrous or as vicious or as scary as I would have imagined them to be in the movie. They won their allegiance a little bit too fast for my taste. And so, a lot of the story beats in the movie didn't give the characters enough breathing moments and stuff. And it was always punctuated with things. But again, if you're into that kind of thing and like just the cheese of it being just a throwback style of a martial arts movie, then yeah, you're going to like it. But for someone who wants to have a more earnest storytelling that the games are now known for, it doesn't quite hit that mark. And I think that was the benefit that the original 1995 movie had at the time, is that it had a lot to go off of established lore, but the lore wasn't fully fleshed out to where it was able to tell the story that the games couldn't. Whereas now, the games are telling the story. I haven't played Mortal Kombat 1, so I'm not sure how well it's been telling the story. But now, we're at a point now where the games tell the story better than the movies could. So, lately, a lot of video game adaptations and stuff just don't hit the mark now, because the, narrative storytelling in video games now are gotten to the point where it surpasses movies in some aspects. And I think this one does that. And I think that's why, with such a bare bones lore and fan service, movies like, Minecraft or Mario could have such a big hit, because it can do more in those movies than what the games themselves do, because the games are really straightforward, you know what I mean? Whereas the inverse is the case with Mortal Kombat. And it's good, but not where it could be. Missed its potential, but it made up for the mistakes that it made on the first movie from 2021. So that's my assessment. Again, that Noob Saibot fight was pretty badass. It really showcased his abilities and stuff, and a lot of with the move sets and stuff that certain characters do and the set pieces. I mean, this movie does really a good job of bringing it to life in live action. But again, the movie's runtime could have been lengthened a little bit, and I'm not sure if it was just because of wanting to stick to a specific tone or being limited by the budget of the movie, considering, the previous movie didn't make as much money as it should have, because it came out, it had a day and date release on account of COVID. So, that's pretty much my thoughts on the movie. I would say there were some story beats that were interesting takes of it. I like seeing Shang Tsung back as sideline characters, because it kind of respects the hierarchy of them in comparison to Shao Kahn at this point in the lore. But I hope they give a big major power buff to Quan Chi if they make him a more of a central villain in the later movies, or go towards that whole Deadly Alliance thing. But then again, the Deadly Alliance thing doesn't really... I don't know where the story could go from here. I don't know if they're going to go towards a Mortal Kombat 3 type thing where they go for a forceful sort of invasion of Earthrealm, negating the rules of the tournament and just straight up trying to invade Earthrealm like they do in the third Mortal Kombat game. But I had fun with it. It didn't suck. I had some enjoyment to it, but watching it, I do feel I was able to see what people could criticize it for. I had my sort of the flaws stuck out to me. But if you know what you're getting into and want to have a fun live action romp for Mortal Kombat, then this movie was good enough. I wonder if I'll have the same criticisms about Street Fighter, although I don't have as much of a close tie to Street Fighter as a franchise like I do with Mortal Kombat, But who knows if Street Fighters will do the same thing that Mortal Kombat does, just with Street Fighter. But yeah, if you want to just have a good time at a movie theater, especially with a fan experience, I'm not sure if you missed that window after the premiere weekend, but it's worth catching. But if you have pretty high standards for an adaptation, you might want to wait this one out. But fans of the game series will find enough to enjoy to make it worth it. But definitely not without its flaws, and I've kind of laid them out there right now. Yeah, we'll see where the franchise goes and stuff. But yeah. Well, anyways, that's my little feedback of it. I'll try to upload this as soon as I can. Just keep the ball rolling, and then hopefully I can make some time to catch some more movies out there and put up more reviews. Anyways, you guys take it easy. I'll see you later.